Myers-Briggs type indicator system, and I'm just going to wing it and explain from how I understand it. Oh. Okay. So basically, every single person has 8 functions total. They have their dominant function, they have their secondary function, which is auxiliary. I don't know if I spelled that right. They have their third function, which is their tertiary. And they have their fourth function, which is their inferior. So these are the most conscious functions. After that, you have what's called the 4 functions that are the shadow functions. And they're basically subconscious, and they only sometimes are brought into your conscious mind. So the dominant function is what you primarily use. It's how you deal with the world consciously. The auxiliary function is supplementary to the dominant function, and it usually feeds into it. This is your prime agenda, your dominant function, and the auxiliary function sort of helps it. The tertiary function develops even later than the auxiliary, but you still use it. And the inferior function is sort of the thing that can be quite irritating, but it's sort of like your Achilles heel. And we all sort of struggle with it for the most part. And the shadow functions, you should kind of just avoid developing them consciously and focus on your conscious functions up here. So there are the functions that we each have. And so how we make decisions are based upon thinking, and feeling. And there are 2 types of thinking, introverted and extroverted. And there are 2 types of feeling, introverted and extroverted. So introverted thinking is making decisions based upon creating logical systems. Extroverted thinking is creating systems outwardly and sort of just like getting stuff done. Introverted feeling is making decisions based upon your internal value system and how you feel, while extroverted feeling is a more accommodating function, and it's making decisions based upon how you think other people will feel. So these are decision making. You make decisions with these, and then we have ways of getting in information as a human. So we have sensory. So sensory is through your like eyes and your ears and perceiving your senses. And then there's intuition. And intuition is sort of a abstract mental perception. And there are also 2 types of, so these are your information gathering. Information functions. So there's introverted sensing, which is being aware of internal things, and it's sort of a recalling function, like recalling memories and where things are and stuff like that. Extroverted sensory, which is being aware of the external environment. There's introverted intuition, which is a prophetic function that just sort of gets fed insight by their subconscious mind. Extroverted intuition, which is basically making inferences and seeing possibilities outwardly. So we have thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. And so these are kind of the functions. Now we're going to get into how we name the types. So we have 4 slots for each personality. And to fill each one in, we have either introverted or extroverted. We have sensory or intuitive. And we have thinking or feeling. And we have perceiving or judging. And so we'll go through this. So where Myers-Briggs gets confusing is because just being able to fill this in doesn't explain how to know what your functions are completely. Just like you can't just like guess if you didn't know how the system worked. So I'll try and explain that. So for instance, I'm an INTP. So I would fill it in INTP. And so now I'll show you my functions. My dominant function is introverted thinking. And because I'm a introvert, my dominant function must be introverted. So it has to be introverted. But if I was an extrovert, my dominant function would be extroverted. So I'm an introverted thinker. And you just have to sort of memorize this, because you could say, hey, why aren't you an introverted intuitive? But you just have to sort of know how the system works. But because I start with I'm introverted, so I'm an introverted thinker. My secondary function, because I'm an introvert, must be extroverted. And it just staggers. So I'm introverted, extroverted, then another introverted, and then another extroverted. So if you're an extrovert, it's going to go extroverted, introverted, extroverted, introverted, but mine goes like this. So my secondary function is extroverted, like we said, but it's extroverted intuition because that's the one left here after my introverted thinking. So I've extroverted intuition. And my third function is introverted, but it's sensing. So we take this one here, it's we flip it to the other possibility, which is sensing. And so that's what my third function is, introverted sensing. My fourth function is the opposite of the thinking. So we have extroverted feeling. So we won't go too in depth and do the shadow functions, but the shadow functions are basically you flip the introverted to being extroverted. So it would be extrovert, introverted, extroverted, introverted. And it would be a swap. It would be a swap of the of those, and then I would have extroverted thinking, introverted intuition, extroverted sensing, and then introverted feeling. So that's how that works. And as an INTP, I primarily, so you can look up the functions on your own, but this is how you decipher these things. And we'll do another one to show an example. As an introverted thinker, I break things down logically, subjectively in my mind. And where I get the information to break the stuff down logically is from my extroverted intuition, which sees possibilities, and it's a perception-oriented function. Like I was showing before, this is a decision-making function, the introverted thinking. The extroverted intuition is perceiving information. The introverted sensing is also perception-oriented, but the extroverted feeling is a decision-making function. So this introverted thinking, which is decision-making, is in conflict with my inferior extroverted feeling because they're both trying to make decisions. Which one am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to the introverted thinking, my strong suit, or am I going to listen to the extroverted feeling, which is my weakness? Well, it would be smart for me to listen to my dominant function because this one's very undeveloped. But we need to develop these things as a human to be more rounded and balanced. So that's how that works. So let's do a different one. How about we do ESTJ. So the ESTJ, they are extroverts, which means that we have the first function as extroverted. Then the second must be introverted, and then extroverted, and then introverted. So this is how you do that. We know that it's extroverted. And just through memorization, because we're going to do more after, we have extroverted, and then we're going to do thinking. It's not extroverted sensing. It's the ESTP. But you have to, this is the one part you have to memorize which it is. So we have extroverted thinking. And then we have the opposite of extroverted, so introverted sensing. So it's the same order for both the INTP and the ESTJ in how we're deciphering this. So we have introverted sensing. And then we have extroverted. And then right here, we're switching the S to N. So now we have extroverted intuition as the third function. And then the third is introverted because we were figuring it. And it's the opposite of T, which is F, feeling. So we have introverted feeling as their weakest function, or inferior. So we have just deciphered the functions of the ESTJ. So we have extroverted thinking, introverted sensing, extroverted intuition, and introverted feeling. Now these people are primarily decision makers. The extroverted thinking is a decision-making faculty in the outward world. It gets things done logically. It's very empirical, but they're fed information through the introverted sensing into their dominant function, which means they have a very good memory when they're getting done and stuff like that. They have extroverted intuition, which makes them be able to see possibilities, and they have introverted feeling, which is in conflict with this decision-making faculty of the extroverted thinking. So they have to think, I want to make subjective decisions based upon how I feel, or based upon the empirical evidence and logical system of the outward world. So they're sort of in conflict that way. So let's do a different one. Let's try, how about the ENFP? So the ENFP, the extroverts, so we start with extroverted, we go introverted, and then we go extroverted, and we go introverted. So you should be able to get the hang of this by now. And then it's different on this one. It doesn't go to this one. It goes right here. So you have to memorize each of the Myers-Briggs types because the order is different. But once you remember the order of deciphering, there's only two possibilities. It's either it goes from this function to or this one. Then you can decipher any of them in your head. So in this ENFP, we go extroverted intuition. And then we go introverted, because it sounds introverted, but we go feeling, because that's the remainder here, feeling. And then we have extroverted again, but it's extroverted thinking is the opposite of this one. And then we have introverted, but it's opposite of the intuition, which is sensing. So we have introverted sensing as their last one. So this is the ENFP, the primary extroverted intuition, which sees possibilities. Secondary auxiliary introverted feeling, which makes decisions based upon how they feel or their value system. They have extroverted thinking, which sort of gets things done and is very empirical in the outward world, organizing things. And they have introverted sensing as their last function, which is sort of being balanced, knowing where things are, being detailed, having a focus on their body and stuff like that. It's perception-oriented. So this is a very perception-oriented type because their dominant function, it sees possibilities. It doesn't primarily make decisions. And it's in conflict with their introverted sensing, which is another perceiving function. This one sort of wants to maintain balance, the introverted sensing, but the extroverted intuition wants to see possibilities. So this type is very bipolar because they have to fight between these two urges. The introverted feeling is where they primarily make their decisions based upon how they feel. And the extroverted thinking also makes decisions. So that's how that works. So how about we change to, let's say, ISTP. So ISTPs are introverted, then extroverted, introverted, and then extroverted. If you could see this. So we start with introverted, and then we go to thinking. So we have introverted thinking, and then we have extroverted sensing, and then we have the opposite of this, which is introverted intuition, and we have extroverted feeling. So this is how the it's sort of like simplified. We write just the abbreviations. So we have I, T, E, E, S, I, N, E, F. But for extroverted intuition, we actually say N-E instead of E-N. And for extroverted thinking, we say T-E instead of E-T. So that's just to let you know about that. So this type is primarily introverted thinkers, like the INTPs. They gain their, that's where they make decisions primarily. And then they take in information from their external environment through extroverted sensing. And they also take in things abstractly through their introverted intuition, just knowing things. And then they make decisions based upon how other people feel and social norms as their inferior function through extroverted feeling. So let's try another one. Let's see, how about ISFJ? So ISFJs are introverted, and then we go to sensing. You just have to sort of memorize this. And so we have introverted, extroverted, introverted, then extroverted. So we go to sensing. So they're introverted sensors, and then we go from extroverted, and we take this one, So feeling, and then we switch it, and we get thinking. And then we go over here, we switch it, we get intuition. So the ISFJs are primarily taking information through their introverted sensing, and then their extroverted feeling is making decisions. They have introverted thinking, making decisions, and they have extroverted intuition, taking in information. Let's do one more. But which one? Let's see. Let's just sort of pick random stuff. Let's do extroverted. Extroverted. Let's do ESTP. So ESTPs are primarily extroverted, then introverted, extroverted, then introverted. And then they are sensors primarily. So we call it SE instead of ES. I don't know if I meant that. And then we do T, so introverted thinking. We switch it, we get extroverted feeling. And we go over here, we switch it, we get introverted intuition. So they're primary extroverted sensors. So they're taking in their outward environment constantly. They sort of live here in the moment. Then they have introverted thinking, which makes decisions. They have extroverted feeling, which is it's like harmonizing with other people, and then which is decision making. And then they have introverted intuition, which is their inferior, which is taking in things abstractly and just sort of knowing. Yeah, so that's how the MBTI system works. How you can decipher these sort of types, and how you can sort of break it down and figure out their functions. So yeah, there's the 8 functions that each of us has, but they're in different order. Everyone has all these functions because we're all humans, and they're just in different order, and they're introverted and extroverted versions. So we have thinking and feeling, which are decision-making functions. We're making decisions in our mind. And then we have sensing and intuition, which is taking in information, which is taking information through your senses or through your intuitive faculties. So that's how humans operate, and I think it's pretty interesting. And so if you're a dominant of one function, you're going to find it very easy to use that function, but you need to develop your second function so that you can be more balanced and be extremely supplemented for your first function. And then your other functions being developed slowly over your lifetime are going to make you a lot more balanced and happy. While I would sort of just avoid the shadow functions, even though you might be sort of encouraged by other people to like develop them if someone else has them as your strength, you should probably just kind of avoid them.